Hello, my name is Oyinlola Oyebode and I'm an Associate Professor in Public Health at Warwick Medical School. I work mainly on the behaviours that drive risk of disease, so things like smoking and inadequate diet. What was my favourite subject in school and why? I think my favourite subjects, well, my revealed preferences are the ones I chose for A-level, which were biology, chemistry, maths and further maths. And within maths, I particularly liked statistics, and within biology, I particularly liked human biology. So not so keen on plants and photosynthesis. But yes, I get to use that biology and maths still in my job these days, so that's great. Were there other women in your field you were inspired by? So in terms of women who have inspired me, I think one person was the director of studies for the medical students at the Cambridge college I went to. I met her a few years later as I was finishing up my PhD, and I told her about the things that I enjoyed most about my PhD, which were the data and the maths, and also doing something that I thought was worthwhile, which was supporting human health. And that is when she suggested that I look into public health. And so she inspired me in that way, which was to sort of give me an idea of what I might want to do for the rest of my life, which is something that I hadn't really thought of at that point. But then I investigated and decided that, yes, it really suited me. And the second person in my field who inspired me is Jenny Mindell, who is a professor of public health at UCL. So during my public health training, so I was doing public health practice, and people in public health work in, for example, local authorities or health protection teams, but I did just a short academic placement, and that is what made me think that I'd want to do academic public health, because working with Jenny was a lot of fun and also again felt really worthwhile. What's been your biggest achievement to date? So in terms of my biggest achievement to date, I think the biggest challenge that I've faced so far is coping over the last year with two very small children who were obviously not in school and nursery for a large amount of last year, and a full-time job. So that was so difficult. It felt like it was impossible. And every day I'd think, oh gosh, I don't know if I can keep going, but somehow have managed to with no lasting damage. So I feel like that is a major achievement. And having managed to cope with all of that that's happened over the last year, I feel really as if I could face pretty much any challenge in the future. Tell us your one piece of advice to a woman or girl thinking about going into a male-dominated industry. So if I were speaking to any woman or girl thinking about going into a male-dominated industry, I would say that even in an industry that looks male-dominated, often you find at the senior levels it is male-dominated, but at more junior levels, I think things are changing. So I guess the first piece of advice I would give is that things change. So just because something's male dominated now doesn't mean it always will be. And I think it's worth being part of that change. And the second piece of advice is just that even if it didn't change, even if it remains male dominated, I think it's nice to stand out, and actually, you know, you can be memorable if you're the only woman in the room, and it's never a bad thing to be memorable. So I would say, go for it. Would I rather speak to animals or speak every language in the world? I have worries about speaking to animals because I think that I would hear a lot of misery if I could understand animals, and also because I still eat some meat, and I think it would make it very difficult to eat any meat at all if I could speak to animals. And I do feel that anybody who speaks a lot of languages is very impressive. However, I am going to go for being able to speak to animals because I think it would allow us to answer lots of questions. I think it would be very valuable for the whole human race if I could speak to animals,